Class 10, Unit 3. The chapter A Piece of String. The author, Guy de Maupassant. Along all the roads around Gotterville, the peasants and their wives were coming to the town because it was market day. Some led a cow or a calf by a cord, and their wives, walking behind the animal, whipped it with a leafy branch to hasten its progress. In the public square of Gotterville, there was a crowd, a throng of human beings and animals. Hauschicum had just arrived at Gotterville, and he was walking towards the public square. Then he saw a little piece of string on the ground. He thought that everything useful ought to be picked up. He took the bit of thin cord from the ground and began to roll it carefully. Then he noticed Malandain, on the threshold of his door, looking at him. They were on bad terms with each other. Hauschicum was seized with shame to be seen thus by his enemy. He concealed his find quickly in his trousers pocket. He pretended to be looking on the ground for something else. Then he went towards the market. He was soon lost in the noisy crowd. Soon the square was deserted. At the tavern, the great hall was full of people eating. An appetizing odor of roast meat rose from the hearth which made everybody's mouth water. The dishes were passed and emptied, as were the jugs of cider. The peasants discussed the crops and their purchases and sales. The weather was favorable for the green things, but not for the wheat. Suddenly, the drum beat in the courtyard outside the tavern. Everybody rose, except a few, and ran to the door or to the windows, their mouths still full. After the public crier had ceased his drum beating, he called out in a jerky voice, "This is hereby made known to the inhabitants of Gotterville, and to all persons present at the market. There was lost this morning on the road, between 9 and 10 o'clock, a black leather pocketbook containing 500 francs and some business papers. The finder is requested to return the same with all haste to the mayor's office. There will be 20 francs reward." Then the man went away, and the peasants began to talk of this event. They discussed the chances of finding or not finding the pocketbook. They were finishing their coffee when a chief of the gendarmes appeared. He inquired, "Is Mr. Hauschicum here?" Hauschicum, seated at the other end of the table, replied, "Here I am." And the officer resumed, "Mr. Hauschicum, will you please accompany me to the mayor's office? The mayor would like to talk to you." The peasant, surprised and disturbed, set out, repeating, "Here I am, here I am." The mayor was awaiting him, seated on an armchair. He was a stout, serious man who spoke in pompous phrases. "Mr. Hauschicum," said he, "you were seen this morning to pick up, on the road, the lost pocketbook." The countryman was astounded. He looked at the mayor. He was terrified by this suspicion resting on him. "Me? Me? Me pick up the pocketbook?" "Yes, you, yourself. Word of honor, I never heard of it." "But you were seen." "I was seen? Me? Who says he saw me?" "Mr. Malandain, the harness maker." The old man remembered, understood, and flushed with anger. "Ah, he saw me. He saw me pick up this string here, Your Honor." And rummaging in his pocket, he drew out the little piece of string. But the mayor, incredulous, shook his head. "You will not make me believe, Mr. Hauschicum, that Mr. Malandain, who is a man worthy of credence, mistook this cord for a pocketbook. After picking up the object, you stood there, looking a long while in the mud to see if any piece of money had fallen out." The good old man choked with indignation and fear. How can anyone tell such lies to take away an honest man's reputation? There was no use in his protesting. Nobody believed him. He was confronted with Malandain, who repeated and maintained his affirmation. At his own request, Hauschicum was searched. Nothing was found on him. Finally, the mayor, very much perplexed, discharged him. As he left the mayor's office, the old man was surrounded and questioned by the villagers. He began to tell the story of the string. No one believed him. They laughed at him. He went along, stopping his friends, showing his pockets turned inside out to prove that he had nothing. They said, "Old rascal, get out." The next day, about 1 o'clock in the afternoon, an employee in a shop returned the pocketbook. The man claimed to have found the object in the road. Not knowing how to read, he had given it to his employer. The news spread through the neighborhood. Hauschicum was informed of it. He immediately began to recount his story with its happy climax. He was in triumph. He talked of his adventure all day long. He told it on the highway to people who were passing by, in the wine shop to people who were drinking there, and to persons coming out of church the following Sunday. He stopped strangers to tell them about it. He was calm now, and yet something disturbed him. People had the air of joking while they listened. They did not seem convinced. He seemed to feel that remarks were being made behind his back. The next Tuesday, he went to the market at Gotterville. just to discuss the case. Malindane, standing at his door, began to laugh on seeing him pass. When he was seated at the table in the tavern, he began to explain the affair. A horse dealer called out to him. Come, come, old fellow, that's an old trick. I know all about your piece of string. Hachikama stammered, but since the pocketbook was found, the other man replied, Shut up. There is one that finds and there is one that reports. At any rate, you are mixed up with it. The peasant stood choking. He understood. They accused him of having the pocketbook returned by an accomplice. He tried to protest. All the table began to laugh. He could not finish his dinner and went away in the midst of jeers. He went home, ashamed and indignant, choking with anger and confusion. His innocence was impossible to prove, and he was stricken to the heart by the injustice of the suspicion. Then he began to recount the adventure again, prolonging his history every day. Each time he added new reasons, more energetic protestations, more solemn oaths. Those are lying excuses, they said behind his back. The people now made him talk about the string to amuse them. His mind, touched to the depth, began to weaken. Towards the end of December, he took to his bed. He died in the first days of January, and in the delirium of his death struggles, he kept claiming his innocence, reiterating, a piece of string, look, here it is, Your Honor, the mayor.